actually, if you look at the science, the chemical composition, the substances that make up the semen, is extremely similar to the substances that make up your brain, your nervous system.
You running off the road, so get out the way. Push the pedal to the floor, blow 'em all away. Yeah, you see I'm getting close, I accelerate.
Do you want to know what it is?
I won't crash, rolling high.
There exists this energy within yourself that simply wants to express itself. It is pure energy, and when it is retained within the system, its previous desire to expel itself downward and outward through the reproductive organs in order to create a new life, instead, this energy is brought back into the system, and it's scientifically proven that it actually is reabsorbed, the semen, and it contains useful substances. It's not devoid of valuable minerals and such. So when this is redirected into the body, this power, it expresses itself in different ways than the reproductive function. And you have this desire to grow, to expand, to become more than what you currently are. Because that's what this energy, this semen, is doing in a very crude sense in the form of sex. And it does it in a more subtle, more subtle, not in terms of less powerful or potent, but subtle in terms of a more refined expression, a higher expression, a more noble expression. It is that which drives you to chase after these higher pursuits. And when this energy of pure desire itself, is channeled into spiritual means, into meditation, your goals, your high aspirations, this energy channels through that conduit. It channels into that desire, and it amplifies it, and it empowers not only the desire, but the actual ability to be successful in this desire, because this is the energy of sex in men. It is something that seeks to find a way. You know, men are always trying to find a way how to get a girl, how to get into, you know, their pants, bluntly. And so this energy. It needs to find expression. And so when you are not expressing this energy in those lower means, it will find expression in these higher means. And that's why it's so powerful. And when you get urges, you should not see it as a bad thing, but see it that you are transmuting this energy, this sexual energy, this energy of life needs to be expressed within yourself. And when you're not expressing it there, it's going to express in other ways. And again, in this meditation, when you do it in this way, when you express it through this way of meditation, then the results are tremendous, because this spiritual energy is this energy of completeness and satisfaction. And this material, this base physical energy is the energy of desire and willpower and growth, and it's the base energy. And so when these mix, when these combines energy of satisfaction and kind of desirelessness that is present in spirituality, and then this base energy of desire, of just raw, pure energy, almost incompleteness, this energy which seeks to find completeness. And when these mix, this is what the alchemists of ancient times called the azoth. This azoth is this alchemical mandala which seeks to show the philosopher the philosopher's stone. This philosopher's stone, by analogy, was said to, or in the external expressions of alchemy, was said to find a way to turn lead into gold, or to turn that which is impure into that which is pure, or that which is less powerful, less potent, less useful to the aspirant, into that which is useful, that symbolizes wealth and power and fame and everything. And so this conversion, even though was often discussed as an external happening. There was a very rich and deep understanding that this was an internal occurrence. And what this internal practice, what this internal cultivation was this cultivation of these sexual energies and rising them up the spine into the brain. Because actually, if you look at the science, the chemical composition, the substances that make up the semen, is extremely similar to the substances that make up your brain, your nervous system. And if you look at the Azoth diagram, they would meditate upon this mandala. And intuitively, eventually, they would realize that this practice of rectification, the practice which is supposed to set things right, to put things in their proper order, to give the alchemist, the philosopher, the aspirant this power, this was seen opposite in the diagram to the body. And it's the same teaching that Christians say. It's the same teaching that the Hindu sages expound on. It is the same teaching of the Muslims, of the Taoists, of the Shinto practitioners. It is that this material world, it should not be rejected, but rather one should be set apart. One should rise to their highest possibilities. It is not that this material world is bad, but it's that this material world is not all that there is. Not in the sense that there is some other spiritual heavenly world. Everything exists here now, but rather that this existence, your existence, can be transformed. You can convert yourself from this crude matter into this energetic, soulful personality to become truly alive. It is said that this practice of semen retention, that this practice of brahmacharya, according to Hindu sages, is that practice which bestows vigor and vitality, spiritual diligence, that it can bestow power, fame, wealth. And this is evident also if you look at all of the great people who have attributed their success to this practice. Nikola Tesla is one of the most famous, who basically single-handedly ushered in this modern era, giving us the power to transmit electricity across long distances through alternating current, which basically made electricity work in the way that it does today, and radio and remote controls and so many things. His genius, which is so little talked about because of the material nature of this world, if more people knew about him, they would understand these deeper metaphysical concepts which they don't want you to know. And that's why this practice is so underground, although it's more recently some people are starting to understand these ideas, but it's been so underground because they don't want you to be empowered. They want slaves, they want workers. And so that is the beauty of this practice, is that it's simple and that it works and that it is found in every tradition. Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, describes the tree of life, describes the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It describes Eve eating from the tree. And this tree, the serpent is meant to symbolize these sexual powers that, when it is not utilized, can be transformed into these higher energies. This serpent represents represents sex, and this fruit represents the sexual act. The scholars of the Torah, they discuss this. So it is extremely evident. In medieval times, it was the common culture that women who would engage in the sexual act had then lost their virtue. If it was not outside of marriage, if it was to a bunch of men, and before that they had ever had sex, they still retained their virtue. But this virtue was not just a moral thing. It was that they retained this innocence that was within themselves, and this power. And the very first child that they had would contain this power of purity and innocence within them. And that's why the kings, they wanted these women who would be able to bear them good, healthy sons, because that is what every single tradition says, that this practice of celibacy, of keeping this energy within oneself, bestows great health, great vitality. And that obviously would be passed on to the children by not overexpressing one's sexual desires. In today's modern era with social media, with high-speed internet, these understandings, these virtues have become less intuitive to us because from such a young age we have been programmed by the matrix in the opposing direction. But with this knowledge, by joining these communities on the internet, by understanding these things, how widespread this knowledge is all across the world and how concrete it becomes so evident, and then we grow in our certainty of the power and the value of this practice. So that is my recommendation to you, to look more into this practice and to start developing it within yourself. And as always, Ad Astra.